neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except as a punishment for crime, whereof the parties shall have been duly convicted, shall exist within the United States.
Sitting in American history as a 10-year-old, I learned a specific narrative that argued that slavery ended with the passing of the 13th Amendment and nothing like it would ever exist in our history again. However, this narrative fails to recognize other oppressive institutions for African Americans that arose after 1865, even rather soon after emancipation. From the Civil War up until World War II, convict leasing, an institution of forced penal labor targeting Black Americans, became standard practice in the Southern prison system. Southern law enforcement sentenced Black prisoners longer for menial crimes and then leased them out to companies for unpaid work. Many of these companies were owned by former slaveholders. While convict leasing was a distinct institution, it was also a legal extension of slavery conditions and its mental repercussions to convicts via the 13th Amendment. After emancipation, African Americans looking for work were met with protest by industrial companies and white workers, forcing them into unskilled positions like domestic work. Convict leasing gained traction when Southern legislation enacted Black codes, such as vagrancy laws, charging African Americans for being unemployed. Those arrested and charged made up the pool of free laborers for companies. While slaveholders had some concern for slaves' health to protect their investment, there was no investment factor for companies in convict leasing. This allowed the working conditions of Black convicts to be like or worse than slavery. Companies chained their workers in dangerous conditions, whipped them into submission, and oftentimes worked them to death. Inadequate diets led to deficiency disorders like scurvy and infectious diseases like tuberculosis, which spread rampantly throughout the camps and increased the death count. While both the men and women experienced conditions that echoed slavery, Black women in particular were victims to improper medical treatment during childbirth, gendered violence, and sexual abuse. In the novel Chained in Silence, Tabitha LaFloria tells the untold stories of women enslaved in convict leasing, including the story of Casey Massey. Massey was sentenced to life in Georgia State Penitentiary in 1882. There, she endured long hours of labor in the mine and merciless floggings. At night, she returned to her barrack. Therein, she draped her cotton and husk-filled mattress with her wilted body and nursed her sore knuckles. Narrowly chambered by the splintered walls and ceiling of the wooden stockade, she was unguarded against blustery winds, oozing rainfall, and sexual predators. Massey was not alone. Black female prisoners were vulnerable to physical and sexual abuse by prison camp officials because of their continued status as property. Records indicate that the physical and sexual abuse experienced by prisoners had mental repercussions such as anxiety, depression, disturbed sleep, and suicidal tendencies. These inhumane conditions and mental repercussions were not unique to convict leasing, as they stem from slavery, but they serve an important purpose in our history books today. Jumping forward to 2018, African Americans are incarcerated at roughly 5 times the rate of whites. Prisoners working to support themselves make, on average, 23 cents to $1.15 an hour in federal prisons, with most in-state prisoners being paid less or nothing. However, they are more so supporting the federal prison industries, titled Unicor, and private companies affiliated with prisons. Prisoners manufacture, package, and ship products for the government and private companies. In American history, children should learn how slavery continued past 1865 legally via convict leasing, and how the prison industry today still has lingering practices of slavery.